My name is Madison. I'm 25. And on that morning, I genuinely believed maybe, just maybe, my life was finally turning a corner. I finally had an interview with an actual tech startup in our city, the kind of opportunity I had prayed for since college. After grinding at retail jobs, babysitting shifts, serving tables, and scraping pennies for gas, I finally had one shot at a job that could change everything for me. I woke up early, put out my clothes on my bed, steamed my blazer, practiced my answers in the mirror, and I actually felt hope in my chest for once, instead of dread. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video. My younger sister Chloe strolled into my room while brushing her hair, not even knocking. She had her Starbucks drink in one hand and sunglasses on inside the house like she always thought she was a celebrity. "I need you to take me to the mall by noon," she said, flat like she was giving a servant a daily instruction. "I can't," I said calmly while zipping my portfolio case. "My interview is at 12:30 downtown." She blinked twice like the words confused her. "No, take me first. I told my friends I'd be there. You can call your little interview people and push it." I stared at her stunned. "You want me to cancel a job interview I waited months for, so you can go shop for makeup?" She rolled her eyes dramatically. "You've literally applied to 1,000 jobs before. You'll get another interview. My girls are only meeting today." She walked out like decree signed. I followed downstairs. "Chloe, I'm not missing this interview. No." She smirked. "I'll tell Dad." My stomach dropped instantly because she always weaponized him like a loaded gun she didn't even have to aim. Dad stomped into the kitchen 2 minutes later like he was summoned from the underworld, his voice already raised before he even finished crossing the room. "What's this garbage I'm hearing you're refusing to take Chloe where she needs to go?" "I have my interview today," I said quietly. "This is the first shot I've gotten." Dad laughed, mean, cruel, mocking. "Your sister actually has a real future. She needs to connect socially. Those girls, their parents have money, connections, they matter." I felt my chest tighten. "So, my life, my goals, my opportunities don't?" He took 2 big steps toward me, his face inches from mine. "Her future matters. Yours never did." Before I could even breathe, he shoved me backward so hard I slammed against the hallway wall. My back burned instantly. My shoulder cracked the picture frame hanging behind me. My knees buckled. Chloe stood there watching, leaning on the counter chewing gum like it was casual entertainment. Mom finally walked in. No shock, no fear. Just her disappointed stare reserved only for me. "Why do you always force trouble?" she muttered, as if I engineered this chaos. Deliberately. I didn't speak. I didn't react. I didn't cry. I just held my breath. Dad stood over me while I tried to push myself back up. "You will take her," he said. "That interview means nothing. Nobody important wants you." I looked up at him and something inside me snapped so quietly it felt like a fuse melting instead of exploding. He wasn't just choosing Chloe again. He wasn't just prioritizing her comfort. He was declaring my life worthless. I stood up slowly. "I'm leaving," I said. "Right now. For my interview." Dad barked out a laugh. "Try it. Walk out that door. You'll regret it." Chloe smirked. Mom crossed her arms. I picked up my keys from the counter. I walked toward the door slowly. Dad blocked it. For a moment, I genuinely felt like I was trapped in a cage with the people who wanted me powerless forever. I stared directly into his eyes. "I'm going to this interview whether you approve or not." I reached for my phone and pressed call, not for him, for someone else, and that someone answered immediately. Because this time, I wasn't doing this alone. This time, they underestimated how far I'd go to stop being disposable. When the call connected, I walked straight past my dad like he was just furniture in the way. He tried to grab my arm again, but I twisted out of it and stepped outside before he could slam the door shut again. I walked down the driveway while he yelled behind me like a man who couldn't believe his control wasn't working anymore. The person I called was Harper, my old college roommate, the only person who ever told me my dreams weren't stupid. She worked HR at a different branch of the same tech company I was interviewing for. I never wanted to use her connections because I always wanted to earn things myself. But today wasn't about pride anymore. Today was about getting free. The wind outside was cold, dry, and sharp, but it felt 1,000 times safer than that house. Harper picked up instantly. "Are you okay?" she asked, breathless, like she could hear the tension through the phone. "No, but I will be," I said. "I need a ride. He's trying to stop me from going." She didn't even hesitate. "Text me the address. I'll be there in 10. Don't go back inside. Stay visible." I walked to the sidewalk, heart pounding, hands trembling, but for the first time, I wasn't trembling from fear. I was trembling from my system realizing it was finally choosing myself. My parents stayed inside. They didn't come out. They did what they always did when punishment didn't land. They went silent. The silence of retaliation planning. I knew they weren't done. They never give up control that quietly. Harper pulled up in a silver SUV 10 minutes later, exactly like she promised. She rolled the passenger window down and stared at me like she already knew this wasn't the end of it. "What did they do this time?" she asked as I buckled in. "They tried to make me cancel the interview to take Chloe to the mall. Dad shoved me against the wall, told me my future never mattered." Harper didn't react shocked. She reacted angry. "I'm going to help you get this job, Madison," she said steady. "And then you are never going back to them again." We drove downtown, and she helped me rehearse the final question set. She fixed my collar. She gave me water. She kept saying, "You earned this. They won't stop you today. Not this time." The company lobby was glass and steel and white marble. Everything my parents insisted I'd never belong in. My interview lasted 47 minutes, and I crushed it. And for the first time, when I walked out, I actually believed I belonged somewhere. We got back into Harper's SUV and my phone had blown up again, but this time from Chloe. She didn't get a ride. Dad was furious. They drove to the mall and she was texting me nonstop. "You just cost me everything. You're so selfish. You're dead to us when you come home. I hope that job spits you out like trash." And I typed back one line, "I'm not going home." And I meant it. Harper took me to her apartment and insisted I stay the night. When I showered and changed into clean clothes, I stared down at my shoulder, already bruising from where Dad shoved me. It looked like a fingerprint of who they always expected me to remain, but tomorrow, I would not wake up as their possession anymore. That night, around 11 p.m., Harper walked into the living room holding her laptop. "Madison, I need you to look at something," she said, serious, tense, not excited. She opened an email she received from HR chat. The hiring director wanted to call me the next morning. My heart jumped. But then she pulled up another message from someone inside the company, one of the recruiters, telling HR privately, "Her father called here. He told us she's mentally unstable and dangerous to hire. Said she's unpredictable and violent. Said she attacked him this morning. He tried to sabotage us from considering her. My ribs went numb. My dad tried to ruin my name before I even got my call back. They didn't just want to control my future. They wanted to destroy it before it even started." Harper looked at me with fire in her eyes. "They just crossed a line. You can't ignore this anymore. They're not going to stop. If you don't strike back smart, they will ruin your career before it begins." This was no longer about one job. This was about making sure they never had the ability to sabotage me again. So that night, we planned. Not a poetic revenge. Not a symbolic message. Not one that depended on karma or silence. A direct, realistic counterstrike that would hit them exactly where they lived and exactly where they thought I was powerless. This time, they were going to face consequences that actually changed their lives forever. And I already knew exactly which part of their world I was going to burn first. When I woke up the next morning, the fear had been replaced by a cold, hungry clarity. Harper handed me a folder with printouts, the recruiter's private message, copies of my dad's threatening voicemail to HR, screenshots of Chloe's smug texts, and a transcript of the call where Dad lied about me being violent. She slid a small digital recorder across the table. "You recorded this?" I asked. "No," Harper said, "but they did." Turns out Dad called the company's HR line again that night and left a rambling voicemail trying to paint me as unstable. The recruiter forwarded it to HR with a worried note. That voicemail was sloppy, obscene, and full of threats about ruining a candidate. It also referenced his employer and his role on the local chamber board, details he bragged about often. Harper looked at me and said, "They can't ignore that. It's policy violation number 1. If he's calling other companies, misrepresenting, threatening, that's fraud against his position." I felt the old hot panic trying to crawl up my throat, but I swallowed it. We drafted a formal complaint. Professional, clinical, not emotional, attaching the voicemail, the recruiter's note, and a timeline showing he'd repeatedly interfered. Harper filed it through corporate compliance channels and quietly notified the company where Dad worked that a senior staff member was making harassment calls to affect hiring decisions. I watched her send the email, and for the first time in my life, it felt like I was finally using my brain, not my tears, as a weapon. Within 48 hours, the company HR responded. They had opened an investigation and temporarily suspended any external liaisons with Dad's firm pending review. I didn't gloat. I didn't celebrate. I simply sat in Harper's tiny kitchen and breathed through the ache I'd carried for years. 2 weeks later, HR called me into a private meeting. They apologized for what happened, offered me the position with protections, and explained that my complaint had triggered a chain reaction. The company Dad consulted for had begun its own review, and the chamber board he sat on was now being asked for clarification about his conduct. A month after that, the paper in my mailbox was small and bureaucratic. A letter from Dad's employer stating they could no longer justify his external advisory role due to repeated ethical complaints. He was stripped of his consultancy contract and removed from the chamber committee where he loved to posture. Mom called me once that week, voice tight with panic, not the practiced calm of accusation. "Madison, we need help. We don't know what to do." I listened to her for 30 seconds and then said, "You made choices. You can fix them yourself." She begged. She tried manipulation and tears and the old lines that used to fold me like paper. I replied, with one sentence, "You don't get to set my life on fire and ask me to save you from the smoke." I moved into my own tiny apartment 2 weeks later, my bruise still faint on my shoulder, but my mind finally clear. Chloe sent angry messages that faded into silence when her friends started keeping their distance from the family drama in the industry circles Dad had clout in. Dad's voice on the phone changed, from commanding to small and sharp with fear, when he called to demand answers about his lost contracts. It wasn't poetic. It wasn't silence. It was practical. Consequences that hit their livelihood, their pride, and their ability to manipulate other people with status. And for the first time since I was a kid, I slept without waiting for a storm to come crashing through the windows. They taught me I had no value. I taught them that value can be reclaimed with truth, paperwork, and refusing to be used as currency. When the final email came from HR offering me a permanent role and a relocation package, I smiled and closed my laptop. I didn't call them back. I booked a one-way bus ticket 2 days later and left the town that taught me what disposable meant. This time, I didn't look back. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in comments from where are you watching this video.